Welcome to my, I'm a now one of the most powerful men in the world. This is where we are. Welcome to our hellscape. Oligarchy, yo. In case you weren't aware, I'm Zuckerberg. I was like, okay. That hat, my head's too big for that hat. It's freaking annoying me. Yo, homie. I'm not evil. Oh my God. Anyway, good morning. Couldn't help myself. I don't know. There's a point where you go, at what point did my life take a wrong turn when I've got, I'm scrambling 15 minutes before talking about something pretty serious and sinister and also very funny, but also searching for my box of like toys and party supplies and shit. It's like, what went wrong? With all your degrees and experience and, there's the nature of the game. That said, I may not have any real self-respect left because I understand that that's how the content game works, okay? That said, I have 1,000 times more integrity and self-respect than whatever the fuck we've seen from Mark Zuckerberg this week. Yo, homie, don't regulate me. Please don't come after me. I will do anything you want, sir. Please don't hurt me. No free speech. I am a robot. Fucking hell. Have some self-respect, man. Also, I hold Mark Zuckerberg to a different kind of standard because he's fucking, first of all, he's Jewish and he's doing an IBM. If you know anything about sort of your Nazi history, right? Yeah, we're going there. But Godwin's lawing it straight away, right? All right, let's be serious. Let's grow up, all right, as much as humanly possible. It's time for us to get very serious. Stop being so childish. Anyway, good morning. The idea is sometimes better than the execution. But hey, whatever, we're good. Seriously, this is what world are we living in here? What's going on? Well, I mean, we know what's going on because I know history and I understand history, and I'm going to talk a little bit about history, but I'm also going to talk about some of the, I'll address some of the stuff seriously. I am going to try and not straw man. Well, yes, I will straw man, but I will also try to steel man some of the tech stuff because a lot of it is just me laughing because if you don't know, I've spent the last decade I've always been one that goes, hey, you shouldn't do that, guys. Hey, you shouldn't do that. That's wrong. Like, I've always been that person. But I really sort of got concerned a decade ago when I was in these sort of tech rooms and these conferences and speaking at these things, and everyone was sort of, I know tech people and I know their blind spots and I know they mean well, and there is a massive gap between tech and the rest of us, and especially tech leaders and huffing their own farts. And this is just, dare I say, engineer autists who are uncoachable, who are clueless, who are in a bubble, and they won't listen, okay? At this point, it's basically like, I've spent 10 years, I've got toddlers going, get up, don't climb on the roof, you're going to fall. Don't climb on the roof, you're going to fall. Don't climb on the roof, you're going to fall. Don't climb on the roof. You shouldn't do that. Gravity is a thing, guys. In my case, I go, history is a thing, guys. Oh, fuck you. What do you know? You don't have a STEM degree. You're just humanities is stupid. Humanities is pointless. Why do you care? We can measure everything. We've got this. The data will tell us when shit is going bad. And guess what? The data didn't tell them that because they weren't checking. And also, people like me who said, hey, there's a problem with the data here, guys, which is that, first of all, this is fucking creepy. Second of all, like you are so out of touch with ordinary users. Okay, so I started as a user experience person. Well, I didn't start as a user experience person. The thing about tech is that your job title changes. Okay, so like in the old days, when you are of my cohort, which is the older sort of rode the wave cohort, we're not like those sort of, millennials and Gen Zs now where their job title is their silo, and it wasn't like that in the early days. We just kind of were generalists. We all know how to code. We were specialized and had strengths in one area like design or user stuff or user behavior or whatever. But most of us were generalists, right? We kind of were had that sort of single view across tech. But as these things became, dare I say, fascistic, corporate, and nightmares, okay, I can't, for lack of a better word, people just specialized and got siloed. And, but for me, it's like now you are your job title. And even then, you're not your job title. Your job title is PR for evil shit. Like, anybody calling themselves a user experience designer right now who is not horrified at the lack of ethics in every single one of these products is an embarrassment to the industry, first of all. Really should be looking at the harms they've caused unintentionally. Again, I'm going to steel man a lot of tech because I'm going to try and bridge a gap from user to tech company, to whatever, okay, so to product managers or whatever. There is such a big disconnect here. first of all, in understanding from users about how tech works. Okay. Like, I can't believe that after my stream, I literally corrected Crystal Ball and Ryan Grimm in, again, I don't know whether it was seen, but on the 38 score thing, the video, I made a point of explaining why it doesn't work that way. And next day I turn on, like, you know, my stories, just while I'm working and stuff, I have YouTube on, and she's still just repeating it. And it's like, it doesn't work that way. And they have a responsibility to have more tech expertise and understand these things. And if they, I mean, I'm not expecting everyone to know how, like, large language models work, but check to see what you're saying is correct, especially on things like X now, where misinformation, lies spread. Well, this isn't new. Lies have always spread faster. And I'm quite disappointed, because I do watch Breaking Points. I like Breaking Points. And people that I generally pay money to, subscribe to, all of those sorts of things, falling for this stuff, even when I've corrected it. Most people have their replies muted, so that's you know, that's not neither here nor there. But it's like, well, there's a process failure here with you if you aren't checking. Like, people just take stuff on face value with tech and not understand that misinformation around tech is a big thing. Okay, it's very important that you are measured in the way that you do tech assessments, because it can look creepy. It can feed a narrative that stuff is overtly evil and sinister and creepy, and, you know, especially when you're talking about things like serious issues like you know, Gaza and that sort of stuff. It's really important that, because again, I'll talk about a little bit how people lose trust in the media, but the way people lose trust in the media is that it's what you get one thing wrong, and then they start to see all the other things you get wrong. And I mean, this is a problem with the media in general, which is that if you're a subject matter expert in something, if you have the mainstream media sort of report on something that you know well about, you see how wrong they can be. Like, that's normal, especially around tech, and especially around politics, and especially around both of those things. The intersection of both of those things is a lot of grey area, and also subjected to a lot of propaganda, okay, on all sides, okay, and paranoia, moral panic, all of this stuff. My job is to cut through that and try to find a way forward and try to offer, you know, tease out some of the stuff. I don't know everything either. They're complex fields. I don't know everything, but I can do a little bit to try and debunk some of these things at the, you know, because eventually at some point there's policies introduced here, there's regulations introduced here. And what I'm seeing when it comes to regulation of tech, people are taking shit on face value and fighting regulations that are actually the right solution for a start, that are against. So, you know, you'll see people fighting against regulations that are literally solving the problem that they're complaining about, which is because they're just stuck in these bubbles and stuff and filling in the gaps with their own ignorance. Also don't know how stuff works. Don't know how the political process works. And also don't understand the limitations of what we're working with, right? You know, that tech's a pretty substantial stakeholder in all of this stuff. They have a point on some things too. It's not black and white. And the problem with that, the problem with independent media that frustrates me is that I hold them to a different standard. I expect bullshit. I expect laziness. I expect every Aussie sort of commercial media and ABC journo to just take a press release and regurgitate it, right? I get that. But when you're indie, I do, and someone who says that you are in opposition to, you know, first of all, corporate media, but also, you know, well-funded AstroTurf media outlets that run online. I'm disappointed when people who I respect don't bother to check. Does it work this way? Yeah, and the 38 score is a really classic example of that, because if I'd been approached or asked about that, I would have said, no, that's not what happened. Here's what happened. It's a nothing burger, okay? But what that does is when you get one thing wrong, from the audience perspective, now again, I I understand internet behavior, okay? And that extends to political behavior. Changing hearts and minds online it's what I've done for years and years and years, okay? Advising on it, not for myself. I'd avoid the spotlight. I prefer to be a background advisor or a writer or whatever. I do this because I need skills, but other than that, whatever. Generally, okay? I'm trying to speak more this year. I don't really want to, but it's just keeps coming up and I keep saying no to it, and I need to do it. Anyway, but it's just check with me. Ping me and go, does it work like this? And I'll go, no, here's how it works. Because if you get one thing wrong, it undermines all of the things that you're getting right. And that's the problem with this stuff, is why it's important to have your facts in place, okay? It's very important to have you know, everything in place. If you're going to start going out there and saying stuff that's controversial, one thing that I've learned over the years is that you get a certain amount of leeway to tell the truth. And so when you do, you got to make sure that you understand what I mean. You don't just, there's people who, we've got a bullshit problem, okay, on the internet. We've got a massive bullshit problem. People just make stuff up. They say what they feel, and they don't, you know, there's a whole bunch of people that aren't necessarily concerned with truth. They're concerned with clicks and affiliate links and Patreon and patrons and affirming bubbles. They're not my people, okay? We can't do much about that. I talked about that in the last stream, which you can see the replay of, and I've talked about this at length. There's very little that you can do to reach someone who is in that bubble of bullshit and motivated reasoning and in a cult. If you understand anything about cult psychology, people need to be nudged out of it. It's some of the hardest work that you can do, which is that people are just trapped in their own minds. They will double down into bullshit further and further and further when confronted with any kind of dissonance. Okay, now some won't. You can change some people. I'm focused on those. But in this case, when you're talking about okay, I'm talking to the people who care about the truth, which is a decreasing number of people. Okay, it's really important that when you take your shot, you make it count. So if you're going up against something, you only get one or two goes at being controversial before the algorithm. Like for me, I constantly operate in truth, so I'm constantly fucking shadow banned from everything because I talk about literally platform manipulation and how to suppress voices and stuff. So I'm of course going to be on the receiving end of those scripts. Okay, but I mean I'm on a 7-day ban with X at the moment because this one I actually probably should have known better, but I was just in the moment and thought it was funny. So I always get pinged when I lose. I just get flow happening. But because I forget that I'm just constantly being pinged, so I have to behave myself in the replies. I forget so much. I get banned for stuff that most people wouldn't get banned for, but that's by the by. Okay. But you only get a handful of goes. If you're your average person, you can't be a full-time constant truth teller because you will lose your platform, you will lose your audience. You have to be strategic about what it is that you are telling the truth about. And I'm talking about journalists covering Gaza specifically, okay? Which is that because the penalty of that is so high, talking about these things, okay, trying to push back against very powerful people, okay, and very powerful interests and people who have a lot more resources than you. Nobody gives a shit that I've been banned from Twitter. No one will even notice I'm gone, okay? It's different when it happens to high-profile people, but when it happens to a normal person or someone who doesn't have an audience, you can easily just get rid of those people. It's not difficult. Unless you've got friends in high places or a direct contact or something like that, it is really easy, if you are a truth teller, okay, to get yourself on the wrong side of every algorithm, especially now because tech is obviously, the US is now effectively an oligarchy. I don't think that anything that I say there is very controversial. Okay. We all, you know, capitalism goes this way. We've been warning about it. The horse has bolted. We're here now. Okay. Now, but my point is that when you're doing media and when you are doing, presenting yourself as an alternative voice that is telling the truth, you want to be very careful. You want to be extra careful about making sure that you cross your T's and dot your I's, because there are going to be interests with that truth telling that want you to share the wrong spin on it. Okay, you need to be extra vigilant. And because tech is now very much embedded in the US administration, you should be on high alert. Okay, you should be on high alert because tech controls the flow of information. We've now effectively got an administration that has been backed by people who want to bring about the rapture, who are celebrating the return of Jesus, who want to bring about World War III so that can happen, so they can meet Jesus. Hey, guess what? Fun fact, it ain't coming. He ain't coming. If you believe in Jesus, Jesus will tell you to your face, off you fuck. You got this wrong. You completely misunderstood me. Did I stutter, cunt? Obviously I did. You must have very, very much misunderstood what I meant when I said what I said. I can't remember. Fucking whatever. All the shit. Jesus was socialist. Fuck off. Anyway, you got people who want to bring about the rapture, okay? Which should be an automatic disqualifier for being a member of any political party, any office. I don't give a fuck. If your main goal in life and your own interest is in meeting Jesus and bringing about the fucking rapture, no, you shouldn't be prime minister. You shouldn't be in politics. It's a conflict of interest. It is the worst kind of conflict of interest because you have no incentive to save the earth that we are on. Okay. And it's like, okay, that's not discrimination. I'm sorry, but you again, your everyday Christian, whatever, that's fine. But fucking fundamentalists, no. It is a direct conflict of interest. Like our previous Prime Minister, Scott Morrison, was a Hillsong Christian. And why is he going to try to save the environment? Why is he going to, what incentive does he have if he thinks Jesus is coming in the next few years and is actively wanting it to happen? What incentive does he have to address climate change, or not just, rob everyone blind and enjoy his life if he thinks, oh, well, because his whole worldview is about, well, I've been born again, I'm off the hook. I've got a loophole into heaven. Fuck everyone else. How is that a qualifier at all for someone who represents the public? Okay. Anyway, that's a whole other thing. I get that pisses me off. Okay. And I don't care. There are some some behaviors. Okay. So it's more about how your motivation and your interest and your loyalties. It's a conflict of interest. I'm not saying Christians shouldn't have representation in government. I'm not saying that everyone shouldn't. Okay. I'm saying that you pledge to the people, not to God. Fuck you. Because if you're serving this batshit evangelical Christian shit, it's against the public interest. Okay. So anyway, that's a whole side digression. But my point is, okay, that if you are so we've effectively got an oligarchy of tech billionaires, people who want to bring about the rapture. The tech billionaires are all building bunkers everywhere. And Trump, I don't see anyone with any incentive to actually save anything or prevent war, prevent destruction, keep us alive, keep us safe, keep our water safe. They're all people who want the rapture fused with people who have bunkers and fuck it all. So if you're in the business of telling the truth against these massive powerful forces who are all astroturfing everything that you see, they control the flow of information. Okay, if you think they don't control the flow of information, I don't know what to tell you. Okay, that's your own normalcy bias kicking in. Google normalcy bias, you'll find out what I mean. That's another little known bias that we have to overcome as humans, which is when things get bad, we sit there and go, no, it's not as bad as it looks. It's not as bad as it looks. We self-gaslight. That's what the normalcy bias is. Everything's fine. Everything's fine. Everything's fine. Everything's fine. And you're always up against that sort of boiling frog shit, okay? But if you're creating content or in the media or whatever, and especially if you are in media that makes a living, promises to do the work, and is in the business of getting to the truth, and up against these powerful interests, right? Like, for example, reporting on Gaza, reporting on various things, okay? It's a mountain ahead of you, and you really need to keep your nose clean and check that everything that you're saying is correct, okay? And that leads back to the last stream where people decided that it was, like I said, the IDF aren't doing it. It's not Israel. It's just not how LLMs work. Are they fucking with you? Yes, but that's not how. So you've got to be careful and make sure that you do things. You got to be extra careful to focus on truth, right? Okay. So you've got that responsibility, especially now because you've got no fact checkers on Meta. Now, I'll talk about that in a minute, but also there is a gap with tech where they're constant. I think the thing that your everyday user doesn't understand, okay, about tech people in general is, first of all, they're siloed. Like I said, it's not like the old days where we were generalists and we understood what the other part of the businesses were doing, right? So the designer had a hand in the code and the code had a hand. They were working with designers, and they also still didn't understand each other even back when it was more simple, right? Didn't have governance, didn't have all of this other stuff, didn't have policy people and lawyers and, you know, like governments and stakeholders. Even then, like the gap between designers, users and engineers was still huge, right? It's you know, partial autism, discipline gaps, right? There's a number of reasons why that exists. But at least your old user experience designers were focused on the users and the users' interests, okay? Now it's just nudging with data and personas and what they imagine people want, and learning to tune that out. Now, there's a history for that as well, which is the fact that if you understand your history of Facebook as a product, so when Facebook first went mainstream, so about 2007, 2008. I was on from 2007. Most people kind of showed up around 2009. Okay, it went really, really mainstream or after 2010. Before they, I mean, I was on Facebook before they even had the ads. Okay, it was just a thing where you drew dick and balls on people's graffiti wall, and it was funny because it would appear in front of their friends. But you know, your mum wasn't on there, and all of your network connections weren't on there. It was mostly sort of people you'd gathered around the internet going, let's go on Facebook, or you might telling your MySpace friends, hey, let's try this Facebook thing. It's got these cool features and blah, blah, blah. Like you had all of these different platforms. You had, remember, Google Buzz and Google Wave. Google's always been trying to get into this space, and then they realized that like the enterprise was probably a better way to go. But before they bought YouTube, they were trying to get in on the connection, social actions, social interaction and all that sort of stuff, but they kind of went away from that. But the history of Facebook was that a lot of this stuff was built in front of the users, real time. So the move fast, break things mentality. Okay, so that, first of all, is how a lot of this stuff started, which was, I'm not going to say a happy accident, because obviously it was designed, and obviously with the benefit of hindsight, we know that there were things moving in the background that were not as they were, not the story that we were sold as users, okay? But people like me who were sold a lie that tech was disrupting the old guard of tech like IBM and Microsoft and all that sort of stuff. We're disrupting people. We're disrupting the web. Web 2.0 is the big thing, and you know, we're changing the world. They said all the right words. They're wearing jeans and sneakers and fucking gold, you know, not gold. What a dork. These fucking gold chains. I don't know why, it just winds me up. Because it's like, Stop being, if you're going to be a fucking evil oligarch fuckwit, don't mock us by looking like that. Anyway, fucking losers. Anyway. So, but one part of Facebook was that what they would do when it was the early product was that they'd change things a lot and users would revolt every time. Okay, so they'd change things and people would go, ugh. Like I've talked about the eBay example before, where eBay went from eBay first started where the website had a pale yellow background as the for the site. Okay, they changed it to white, and the users went, no, I'm leaving eBay, no, and then so they rolled it back and rolled it back to the yellow. Okay, then they just slowly, over the course of several months, just gradually lightened and graded it down until it reached white. Okay, so the users didn't notice. Okay, that's one of those classic sort of stories with users, how users arc up against sudden changes and disruptions to their flow and disruptions to how they use it. They arc up, they create a stink, and even if it's a good change or an innocuous one, like, I want yellow. It's like, well, okay, why do you want yellow? I don't know. I don't like change. Like, that's a known sort of barrier, I think, in UX for a lot of product designers. You got to do things gradually and incrementally with users, or it just creates a headache. Okay. So Facebook learned early on from that type of thing, where every time they changed stuff, every time they added on a new app or changed things or added groups or added pages, they would have to account for some degree of user revolt. All right. Now, the thing about that is that over time, Facebook learned that they could just do it and people would get mad. They would threaten to leave Facebook, but never did. And that was that's where these things evolved over time to create somewhat, again, these things don't come from nowhere necessarily, which is that Facebook then, over time, learned that they should not listen to their users when they make a change or introduce a feature or product or whatever. So that there's that historical perspective on why there's a gap between tech and users. Okay, so your everyday users, because users don't know shit en masse. Okay, now the way that Facebook adapted from a few experiences, changing the newsfeed, adding features, always having people cracking the shits because they were trying to change things, even if they were better changes, people would just fight it. I use the eBay example because at the end of the day, who gives a fuck if it's yellow or white? It still functions, right? That was an interesting example of why users they're irrational about change, right? So this is something that we learned on the fly. Okay, now I have to emphasize a lot of these things we learned on the fly from experience and testing. Okay, now this is where data comes in. So the more precise measurements and the more sophisticated the data became and the way that people were measuring and all that sort of stuff, building out these dashboards and learning how to measure everything, okay, from like what you hover over, what you look at, right? Because here's another fun part of UX, which is that you do tend to move your eye along with your mouse. So when your mouse moves, you actually do tend to move your mouse and drift it upwards if you're looking at something. Okay, so that is something that we've learned over time through lots and lots of user labs and user research over time. Now, again, these things are learned as ongoing things over time, like politics. We try something, we fuck it up, it gets worse, we have to fucking fix it. And then, these things, everything, nothing happens in a vacuum. Everything that happens in human knowledge, everything, we evolve, okay? Back to the fucking Christians, we evolve, okay? We're constantly learning, and that's the beautiful thing about humans, and it's our worst fucking thing, because the thing that we refuse to learn is that we're always learning. We don't actually know everything you know, just because it's the new thing. I think we're smarter than we are. There's always unintended consequences to things. So what I see, it is funny because it is linked to these Meta AI chatbots, right? So people, I've known about them for a while. I didn't really mention it because I've figured that it was part of their broader strategy, and I'll explain a little bit about what that is. But I'll also talk about the community notes stuff and the fact checking briefly. It'll link into it. I also just try to talk about things from my perspective, assuming that you've already seen these. I'm not a news source. I'm a commentator-ish. I'm just sharing my view on things. I'm not going to sit and watch the thing, react to the thing. First of all, copyright strikes. There's no point. And second of all, you've already seen it, and I just don't find that it's like there's no point. Like I'm just going to assume that you've seen the news about the tech if you are interested in what I've got to say. Okay. So I'm not reading the news. I'm just talking around the things. But there, a lot of these changes that occur with tech and people start panicking or freaking out or whatever. One thing you need to know is that over time, tech, whatever that means, like again, broad, big tech, Facebook. Okay, let's focus on Facebook and Meta's experience. But the same thing applies to Twitter, X. I mean, he's discarding. This is the problem with these narcissistic billionaires, is that they don't, not so much Zuck, but Musk comes in and just acts like he knows everything, and just discards history. Okay, which is what fascists do. They love discarding history and thinking, again, capitalists, they love to discard the fact that history exists. Okay, if there's one thing that Marx said, it's you can't escape history, the patterns of history. Okay, it's one thing, and that's where we're, anyway. So that was a side digression. So with a lot of the context of a lot of this stuff that you're going to start seeing, especially now that there's a fucking techno-feudalist hellscape in the US, is that there are charitable explanations for the gaps. Okay, I do prefer to, I have no problem with, everyone has gaps. Nobody is a genius, an oracle. I don't, the reason why well, everyone is human, okay? Everyone has gaps. Everyone is vulnerable to manipulation. Everyone can get brain rot like Elon Musk has. And, this is absolutely linked to everyone telling him he's a genius as much as it is him thinking he is, okay? If you tell anybody, if you have a worldview that says you get rich from merit and that there's nothing wrong with that, it all feeds from like a worldview of free market. If you believe that you are the winner in the free market competition game, okay, and everyone around you is telling you that you're a genius, everyone is acting like everything that you say is correct and true and wise, you're going to end up here. You're not going to be someone who sits there and goes, hey, I have a gap here. Maybe I should... again, that comes back to the journalist thing. Like journalists, when they're doing journalism degrees, they do like 1 or 2 units in politics, or they think that because they've built a whatever online that they understand the internet, especially Twitter. Like one thing with journalists and Twitter is that they are the most frustrating Dunning-Kruger fuckheads that ever existed, which is that they don't know how tech works. Even people who are mostly covering tech, if you're covering tech, not working in tech, or haven't worked in it, you don't know as much as you think you know, and you should check. I am available at all times to check things, and if I can't answer you, I can find someone who can. Okay? The details matter with these things. It's like people will go consult a lawyer. Some people won't, but, for the most part, it is appropriate to say, oh, no, I'm not a lawyer. But more people should say, I'm not a tech expert, okay? It's the same level of diligence that you need to have, right? But too many people, especially Americans, they're just confident in their not knowing stuff. But tech in particular, and especially the history of a lot of this stuff, where it came from, I lived it and I know where it came from, like in user experience with Facebook. Ignoring users and pushing features on users that they don't want necessarily came from the fact that users would arc up irrationally over like small changes. And over time, Facebook had data and they learned to trust the data. So the data was actually useful. So there was a point years ago where the data was useful and it gave insight that you couldn't ordinarily get into people. Okay, now again, the problem's capitalism. So people got greedy. They saw these markets in buying data. Okay, and it became a race for that. It became a race for more insight and information to sell people shit. Like even down to Palantir. I mean, I do the charitable view of that is that some of the biggest problems that we have as human beings this comes from behaviorism, right? Which is basically that observing people's behaviors and data and stuff can be more insightful than what they say. Sorry, I just sat on my mouth. But it can provide more insight. Like insights was the words of they changed the words because they become poison and become buzzwords, and some dumb fuck marketer overuses it and rips a bunch of people off, and so they change it to something else, right? But it came from a place. It didn't come from nowhere. People don't just decide to go, whoa, we are going to put these creepy robots. It's like there's a whole lead up to that. There's a whole process, failure of systems. I see things as a failure of systems. And if you are studying history and you are studying patterns and you have good pattern recognition, right? My particular brand of autism happens to not be so great on, articulating things sometimes, but I do see patterns, okay? I'm good at pattern recognition, and in the humanities particularly, and in terms of people, okay, and behaviour. And it's like, well, I can understand where it came from with Facebook because users started to show over and over again that they're irrational, they don't know what the fuck they want, and that they're never going to leave. And so when users started saying, I'm going to leave Facebook, I'm going to leave Twitter, I'm leaving Twitter, still on there, I'm leaving. Every time anything doesn't go the way you want, or even just a minor change like the colour, okay, oh, that's it, I've had enough. Like that. We're in that legacy. There is that history there. Okay. And they came to trust the data more than they trusted their users because users were being fuckwits and irrational and threatening shit. So that's not reliable data, okay? Much like in politics. One of the mistakes that I think the centre-left parties make a lot is underestimating that, people's perceptions and feelings. I mean, we know this about politics, which is perception and feelings matter more than facts, like the current Labor government, right? They rely on data and they ignore at the expense of the other stuff. Like in Australia, we have to somewhat tune out the Murdoch press, but you can't ignore the Murdoch press and the reality of what you're up against because they're going to frame everything that you do in the worst light. And if they can't find anything, then they'll just make it up. And that's what we're seeing right now. But most of the people who are working in these areas are good people who have, there's a lot of history and a lot of learning behind it, which is that maybe the data is slightly more reliable than feedback from users, okay? Same thing with polls, with votes, okay? Yeah, people vote for irrational reasons, but it's not, if you start pandering to your voting base, well, you end up with Trump, okay? Trump's not good for anybody, okay, in terms of keeping things stable, keeping people safe, anything like that. And that's not an opinion. That's a historical fact, okay? That where we are at right now is deeply unsafe and unstable, okay? And not in the way Blue Anon would say, because, but you know, what, anyway. But there's reasons why we get here, okay? And this is why you need to look at systems. Like, this is exactly what Karl Marx did, which was he said, well, you know, like, let's look at the patterns. Let's look at the patterns of history. Let's look at what is unchanging. That how can we predict the future with, you know, like, try to understand how to build society moving forward, based on lessons from history where things have gotten pretty horrible, okay? And one of the things is that capitalism does this, okay? So anyway, but you get what I'm saying. So, but with the history of Facebook, it's the same thing with there, as much as it's very Godwin's law to keep bringing up World War II, like, there are parallels there, okay? Because corporate culture is ultimately authoritarian. And if you look at it from a political psychology point of view, you see that Hannah Arendt, Marx, people who have, like, been really good tools in terms of analysing World War II are useful now, because the people who worked in the concentration camps would tell you that they were good people too, and they probably had good intentions because they were doing their job. They had a different worldview, okay? They for some reason, this is something that psychologists have extensively tried to understand, especially social psychologists, is how people turn off horrific things and do horrific things, even though they're otherwise good people, okay? It's not black and white. And unfortunately, especially the American left, have somehow had their brains messed with to a point where they are doing the bidding of, evangelical Christians and whatnot, we're blaming the individual for things that are the problem with a system, okay? So I don't blame the system. So anyway, I wandered off. I had a bit of a brain melt then. Did you see that? Just went blue screen. Let me get some water. Hang on. Let me have a drink. It's time for a drink. So you need to understand that nothing happens in a vacuum. So it's not like someone sitting at Meta going, "Wahaha, let's scare people with AI," okay? There is some research around using AI, and particularly chatbots, to encourage pro-social behaviours, okay? Now, that pro-social means opposite of antisocial behaviours, okay? So all of that nudging stuff that I've talked about before, where it says, are you sure you want to do that? Do you want someone to talk to? You know, all of the stuff that I've said should be human, like having a social worker if you get banned so that you can talk, you know, someone who knows, someone who can actually sit and explain to you why you were banned and how you can change it and all that sort of stuff. That's always been the missing link. The problem with tech is that they think that they can automate things that require a human. If you commit a crime or land in the hospital having, you know, some sort of event where you either try to hurt yourself or hurt others, or, you know, you reach some sort of bottom, there's a human there that comes to talk to you to say, hey, you know, what support can we put in place? Do you want some education? Blah, 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 blah. Okay. That needs to apply online too, which is when people, we need the incentives to change so that so one of the white papers that I worked on, haven't published, haven't finished, but I never published because I've realised they weren't really going to listen, was that, you know, on a ban, if you have a ban, you have someone call you, someone who's qualified to talk to you and see what's going on. Okay, why, you know, and to get your account back, you have to go and learn how to be a good online citizen. Teach people how to do it. Don't just ban them, because they'll get worse and double down and angry. And that's what we're seeing right now, is people just think that they're getting, you know, they think that they're being persecuted and therefore they're losing trust and they're directing it in the wrong places. These are easily solved problems, but unfortunately the bottom line and profit seeking and all that sort of stuff is that's the number one goal. So they're not going to spend money on the right solutions. And They know the solution, but they're putting an AI chatbot in its place. Also, so there's that part. Okay. But also you have to remember that tech has this mindset where they iterate. Okay. So they try a thing, they put a thing, and then they measure it. They see if it sticks or see if it works. And then they will release sort of an early version of it. That's an alpha version. They'll invite people to test it, they'll measure it, and they'll improve it. That is a continuous cycle with every tech product, okay, in theory. In theory, you've got these sort of very short sprint cycles, okay? Now, the thing about sprint cycles and short-term sprints and that sort of stuff is that usually, especially if you're operating on like lean or agile or anything like that, an unintended consequence of that is that you are stuck in short-term thinking, okay? Unfortunately, a lot of the like project methodologies that exist now were designed in response to it. They have their own bias for tech in the fact that they never really zoom out and look at the big picture very often. It's always about the next sprint and the current data, okay? So they'll look at the overall data. They might set they might set like broader project goals, but it all is very project oriented, sprint oriented, and there's a lot of short-term thinking when it comes to tech products, okay? Either whether it's making a minimum viable product that you can sell off and get rich quick, or internally like meeting KPIs, or being under pressure to develop new ideas all the time rather than actually create quality ones. Okay, so there's all of that sort of stuff. This technology exists, and like Amazon has 1.3 million employees, right? They're big companies. Facebook is not far behind that. I don't know exactly how many. Amazon, that includes the warehouse, so I think it's a bit different. But they're massive companies, and everyone has their job title, and they sort of, they sit there and their job title is user experience officer, but they never talk to a user. They're looking at dashboards, and they are extrapolating based on their own biases and their own stuff what users want. Because over the years, again, the newer generation of user experience designers aren't talking to the users directly, and they've also been primed to dismiss what the users say because of all of this history. Okay, now a lot of these people aren't actually that smart, because a lot of people, the newest generation in tech, don't actually seem to understand tech, like the history of tech. Like they don't even understand that this stuff exists. Like the number of tech people I've told about that eBay story, who are UX designers, and that's like a perfect example of basic user psychology. Like a lot of them haven't even studied psychology. A lot of them haven't don't engage with user research. They don't do anything. They just plonk stuff together and hope and measure it and look at a dashboard. That's what a lot of tech is now. It is assembly. It is very uncritical. And I can see how that stuff mirrors a lot of the stuff where you're looking at Auschwitz and you're looking at people who are sitting there just doing their little like siloed job, and they're rubber stamping everything, and they're not really thinking about what it is that they're doing and rubber stamping, because these things, that's how tech has evolved over the years to become these massive, disgusting corporate behemoths that are now pandering to fascists. And again, I don't use, I've said it's fascistic, and I've said that things were at risk for some time. I am not one of those people that just, I mean the words that I say. I'm not just flinging it around. Okay. The United States has a fascist government right now. Okay. And it is an oligarchy. Like if you still think there's a democracy, good luck. But also, like both parties are heading in that direction. Again, whether it's normalcy bias that's saying everything's fine, everything's fine, everything's fine, everything's fine, because people just need to feel safe and need to feel fine, rather than sort of, I've got the benefit of being outside the US, so I'm kind of less emotionally invested in it, even though it does fucking affect us too, in severe ways, including how we communicate. Like, if you try to criticize the US government, that's the thing that's been chilling about Zuck's announcement. The thing that people are focusing on is the fact that they're implementing community notes or getting rid of fact checkers. Like, that's by the by, right? I don't see United States-based fact-checking organizations as any more reliable than the AstroTurf community notes bots that fucking, like, you know, flood X. Now, community notes works well on certain things, okay? On political stuff, it doesn't work at all, okay? Anything that involves coming up, like I said, telling the truth, coming up against a lobby group of some variety, it doesn't work. Because they will work to get you banned from community notes. Like, an example of how community notes fails, okay, was we've got anti-vaping laws here, okay, and there was a whole campaign from the I imagine it was the tobacco lobby or someone like that, that was just deliberately lying about vaping laws, saying that people were going to go to jail for 2 years for vaping, which is absurd. And basically it was just a regulation that was basically like keeping people safe, which was, you know, anyway, people with brain worms go, oh, they always say they're keeping you safe. I was like, no, it was a regulation to keep you safe. It's literally not what the policy says. Like, I go through this a lot. I went through that with the social media ban stuff as well. It's like, read the fucking policy. You agree with it. You're fighting the thing that you're talking about. So it was basically trying to introduce regulation so that the import of unsafe, like unregulated nicotine products and vapes were, you had to get a license, right? So with the vape store that I used to get my coils, they went through a process of about 9 months and became an online pharmacy, and now they can legally sell that stuff, okay? You just needed a prescription for nicotine because, again, it's just, I mean, it's annoying. Yes, I have to go to the doctor every month for my opiate patch script. That's what regulations keep you safe, unfortunately, okay? And there's a bunch of people who really don't give a fuck about the general public and their safety, and that's tech. But again, some people do. Okay. But with that with community notes, all I did was because I believe in community notes initially, and I signed up for it, and I was like, oh, this is something that I can like get my teeth into. I can share and correct things, and it works sometimes. But if you are up against one of these sort of Koch brothers funded like troll farm type of things, okay, with disinformation groups, they will just get you. I reached because all I did was post the actual policy and say that's not what it says. All it is, I said, like, this is what they're referring to. This is Therapeutic Goods Administration. It's about you will not go to jail for having vapes. Like, it's just, that's not true. They then mass reported that, downvoted that comment so much that Community Notes said, if you get one more, you are banned from Community Notes. So that exists throughout the whole system, okay? Now, Zuck knows this. The thing that, because again, if you've watched me over the years, you'll know that I've covered a lot of this sort of Facebook ad manipulation, taking people off site, how they get around the advertising rules on Facebook, how to drive and radicalize people through, how to launder money through digital agencies and that sort of, dark money through digital agencies and all that sort of stuff. Cats against Trump strategy is what I call it. He knows that, but it's also a large part of his income base. Okay. That said, what he's also saying is correct, which is that there's a lot of people who are just engaging in their attempts to play whack-a-mole with disinformation and astroturfing, and also, again, the interests at play with these fact-checking organisations. Like, I've covered this stuff, like the CCDH and ADL. You're seeing that now with Israel, and just Everything is hate speech. Everything is anti-Semitism, right? I've talked about the CCDH before, where, again, this is where broken clocks, twice a day sort of thing, where they were lumping in the word cunt, which was the highest amount of offensive words into their data set. There was a very small amount of the other hate speech, right? And it was inflating the figures. Okay, so it was they were absolutely just redefining what hate speech is, and they had the ear of every algorithm engineer in the world. Okay, so everyone was deferring to this organization whose methodology was absolute dog shit, culturally biased, and clearly with the intention. It had no is there humor? Is there anything? They had no context to any of it. They just reported that hate speech had gone up in a week when a whole bunch of people had been banned unfairly and were testing their luck and all that sort of stuff, right? And people just took what the CCDH and ADL said as gospel. And so there is some merit to what he's saying about that, which is that these fact checkers are narrative humpers, like The Atlantic. The Atlantic is a fucking lolcow media at this point. I can't believe I used to give them money, where they're just Wired, Atlantic, Teen Vogue, Mother Jones. There's a couple of others. The Washington Post. Taylor Lorenz used to be, but she was a useful idiot in that regard. I think she's a good actor. She means well, but people get played. Right? People get played because they take things on face value, much like I was talking about with a lot of the tech stuff, where I watched Crystal Ball talk about this 38 score on as if it was true on Breaking Points. And I've seen Emma Vigeland fall for this stuff over Kiwi Farms. I see all of this stuff where people just plant a thing, they say it with authority, and people go, well, they obviously know what they're talking about. I can't possibly check everything. And, even good people get caught. People who are good actors and try to do the right thing get caught in these disinformation campaigns, which they are. Okay. The people who call in and say this happened with, there's a vulnerability with that. And the Majority Report, for example, okay, which is listening to your audience, listening to users, is also a terrible idea. You've got to balance all of these things at once, right? So you've got to listen to your users and your audience, but you've also got to check that what they're saying isn't like horseshit. That's the responsibility that journalists particularly, but content creators in general, should have, okay? And it should be required of them. It used to be required of a journalist. Like the difference between a journalist and a non-journalist is that a journalist understands that responsibility, the ethical, legal responsibility, okay? I wouldn't go so far as to say that it's a fiduciary duty to their audience, but I would say that it's pretty close to that, okay? You have a duty of care to your users and your audience to do the right. I do more journalism than most journalists. I go and check stuff. Like I get stuff wrong, but that's because I have been caught taking things on face value over the years, and I don't want to do that. I don't want to mislead anybody. Okay. All I do is share my knowledge, and I am not a journalist. Okay. And if I'm giving legal advice, you'll know the difference. The way that I speak, the words that I choose to use are very considered and very different because I value that duty. Okay. When I'm talking shit here, I'm just riffing. Okay, it's a bit different, but I do still make sure that if I fuck up, I correct it or whatever. And I have no audience. If I've got an audience of millions of people, that responsibility is huge and very important. And so just check stuff. So anyway, but it does come from the fact that, like I said, a lot of the community notes is easily gamed. The media ecosystem is easily gamed. But also remember that Facebook is currently, or Meta, Google, Amazon. Lena Khan has done as much as she can possibly squeeze in terms of regulating them, getting them ruled as monopolies, as much as she could do in this term. Now, obviously, they have put someone in that is probably going to undo that, drop the cases, but she has put as much in motion as she possibly can to fight these massive monopolies and get them regulated. The Australian government is doing that. The EU is doing that. Okay, we're pretty close to closing in on them. So moving to Texas to be close to Donald Trump is a strategic move on his part, okay? But not for the reason, not because, it is pretty funny because I don't think he shares their politics, but this is pure shareholder business strategy shit. If there's, Zuck's a different kind of guy, and I have a soft spot for him because I think he does his best with all of this information, okay? I think that I wish that he would do more as the CEO. I think that in many ways Zuckerberg exists and makes Facebook less evil because he owns it and he can be the gatekeeper. Like we've seen what happened with Twitter and Jack, where he got overrun by the Capitol and the board and all of that sort of stuff, and he kind of fought them a lot about the direction of Twitter, but he had to capitulate. Zuck has deliberately structured Facebook and Meta in a way where he at least can stop it going too far off the rails. I think he's savvy in that regard, and I think that that's a lot of what this move is about. Like this, it felt like when I watched his video, I tried to play it, but I couldn't download it for some reason. I was like, and my computer I can't like do anything with this old computer. When I upgrade my main laptop, I'll switch it out and I'll be able to share videos again. And then my keyboard stopped working and I was like, fuck it, I got to go on stream. But I got it. This is why I hate wireless shit. Because it's like, fucking hell, it was out of charge. The battery may even run out on my microphone. So anyway, what was I going to say? Yeah, so he's got a lot of competing things going on, but a lot of it is around regulation. Now, it was very funny because he said that he's basically doubled down on the United States and free speech. Like, he knows that free speech doesn't exist. He knows. Now, again, you've got to understand text history to sort of understand the subtext of everything that's going on. And again, I'm not saying I'm the only one, but I'm just saying there's a lot of context to that Hail Ants hostage video, where the thing that people are focusing on is like the community notes thing. Okay, now community notes, I've talked about Wikipedia. Wikipedia can be gamed, not to the extent. The fact that these right-wingers, they're the ones who astroturf fucking everything. And the reason why they're going to war over Wikipedia is because Wikipedia knows what they're up to and, like, corrects that, okay? Wikipedia knows their game because Wikipedia was one of those very first crowdsourced tools that succeeded and has gone through all of these lessons and knows that again, the research is there. Everyone who knows anything about these things has engaged in good faith with the exact same stuff that I'm recommending, like the book Network Propaganda. Okay, there is a massive asymmetry. The people who are manipulating platforms, harassing users, getting users banned, all of that stuff is the right wing mostly. Okay. And the neolibs, who are right-wing by definition, like the Democrats. But a lot of that is because they have to do a lot of this stuff because of this whole ratchet effect to the far right, okay? If Rupert was blinked out of existence and we forgot about all of these incentives and this business model, if Murdoch just didn't exist anymore, if Piers Morgan didn't exist anymore, if the Daily Wire could, they're all of those guys are the culprits for large amounts of astroturfing. It's not Russia. And the thing about the far right conservatives online and the groypers and all of those is that they project. They accuse everyone else of doing what they're doing. And that's why it's like, okay. But so accusing Wikipedia of now, does Wikipedia have vulnerabilities? Yes, I talked about that network of magazines, Wired, Mother Jones, Yeah, those guys, Team Vogue. Rolling Stone was the other one, where they're owned by the same company, but they are also, so they will plant stories that sort of run a narrative and then reference that story or set of stories, and that's how you make stuff true on Wikipedia. Now, there's an element of truth to that. However, Fox News is the worst. They claim that they're anti-mainstream media. They're the largest media company in the world, okay? They are, again, it's just, again, like just facts don't line up with right-wingers being the victims and rather being the perpetrators. So Zuck's in this position where he's public enemy number one for these guys, okay? They keep claiming he's censoring them when he doesn't. If anything, they get favourable treatment on these platforms, okay? He also knows that there's a lot of money in it. Like at the end of the day, there's a lot of money in it. But also at the end of the day, these people are stakeholders. They're customers. You can't just go. It's like in a democracy. You know, a democracy, you have to. You can't cut out fuckwits from democracy. Or so as a socialist, everyone should have a happy life, get a minimum standard of living, have a house, have food. Whether you're a fuckwit or not is irrelevant. And Americans seem to make everything conditional on whether you're a fuckwit or whether they think you're a fuckwit or not. It's like, well, no, that's irrelevant. It's a human right. Human rights are independent of whether you're a fuckwit or not. They're not conditional, okay? And it's the same thing with right-wingers, which is that, you know, even the worst people on earth shouldn't starve to death. Sorry, okay? You don't deserve stuff. If it's a system is for everybody, including people you don't like. And that is the problem, which is that these people take the fucking piss out of all of that and they manipulate us all, you know, they make everything garbage. And so, but again, Zuck knows this. I'm not going to sit here and go, well, I'm smarter than everyone at Meta. I mean, I've got insights that a lot of people at Meta don't have, but Meta knows stuff. They do this research. There are good people who work in tech, and those are the people that I try to reach, and they're surprisingly reachable. Defensive, yes, it's difficult to go through that process of, you know, grieving what you thought tech would be. I mean, millennials are not doing that as much as my cohort because they've got brain rot and they working for Facebook is like working for the bank. When, you know, they don't really do it because it's a vocation. They do it because it's a job. They don't do it. It's different. Okay. Founding and starting your own thing and your own piece of tech is still an outlier, okay? Most people still just want to exist within an authoritarian corporate structure, which is why they're not so worried about working within an authoritarian government structure, so long as they're comfortable and happy and well paid. And they don't necessarily think about, that's why, you know, America is one big corporation that doesn't think about the poisoned water, you know, you're in a corporation, you sit there, you're working for a company that wastes water, exploits people, they're painting it and all that sort of shit, but you get paid, you go home, you're happy, you go, okay, somehow in your brain you reconcile it and go, okay, well, I'm a good person. That's America, but to the rest of the world. So they fuck the rest of the world, but they don't care because it helps, you know, they're comfortable, they're fine. It's only because Americans are now on the receiving end of all of the shit they've done to the world that they're upset. Make no mistake, most Americans could not give a fuck about the world, about the rest of us and the impact. They don't care about labor practices outside of their borders. They don't care about what I've got to say about this. They don't care about our water. They don't care. We are a mere place for them to engage in tourism and treat as a novelty, and we are not stakeholders in the corporation of America, okay? And so that is a whole mindset that it's not just about corporate versus government. It's just their whole mindset is, well, I'm fine as long as I'm well fed and as long as I'm taken care of and as long as my life, I'm fine. Okay. That's something that's not unique to Meta. It's not unique to X. It's not unique to Tesla. It's not unique to any corporation. And, you know, I think that a lot of Americans don't really understand that we are, okay, so if we're mere vendors for the corporations of America, for the corporation of America, okay? Australia is a subcontractor, a vendor. We're begging for fucking payment. Like, whenever I've worked for tech companies as a vendor, they just go, no, replace your contract with ours. It's like, we don't have any bargaining power, okay? That's what the rest of the world is to the United States at them, because they're just bullies and they don't give a fuck. And basically, you sit there and you go, okay, well, I'll rather have the business, so I'll just, okay, all right, I got to survive. That's all right. I'm a vendor. I have no power in this relationship. And so Americans, as representatives of that, I'm sure that the individual, procurement people think they're good people, but they're also unethical. They're also exploitative. They're also exploiting a small business owner on behalf of their corporation. And that's how that's how everyone in America thinks. They think everything is a tool, everyone is of service to them, and everyone is a vendor to the corporation of the United States of America. Okay. And that's how but at the same time, so, like, a lot of this stuff is just like, well, Zuck has doubled down. He has basically declared war on the EU. You can, like, the subtext of that is that he's basically said, we're going to fight EU and Australia using Donald Trump and his fascistic imperialist bullshit to bully the EU, especially Musk. They're going to bully the EU and Australian governments and any government that tries to reel them in. That's, that's deeply worrying, okay? Especially from my point of view, because, tech law, what am I going to fucking do? Stir some shit, I guess. That's all you can do. But, it's, none of this is like, oh no, how will they fucking, my reach will be cut off. Yeah, it will be, probably. But I'm used to that, so it doesn't matter. But it's the same thing with these, like, AI chatbots that were discovered. Like, they've been around for a year. Like, they're part of, so the thing that Meta are introducing is that they've gone leaning hard into AI. Now, if there's one thing that I think any content creator or influencer needs to understand here, which is that they pay you like 2 cents in the dollar for, if that, of what they make from you, okay? And even they consider that too much overhead. So they're putting AI in place. If you've sold your soul harder than Zuck to become a shell of a fucking person who only does fucking product placements and has no opinions and whatever, you're fucked, because they will replace you with an AI bot that they'll just have ads running and all that sort of stuff, right? That said, the charitable thing is that there are also use cases, like I said, teaching people pro-social behaviours. But again, influencers don't have opinions. Influencers can be programmed. Influencers can be prompted and programmed to say, woke garbage that actually, like, takes the teeth out of it and stops people from actually believing in real politics. Like, if there is anything that is more indicative of the woke mind virus, okay, that is a neoliberal information weapon to distract people from class politics, it is that they're wanting to create AIs that distract everybody with identity bullshit and have them spreading all of this propaganda that there is no... do you really think that you're going to get a chatbot that tells you that, like, your class interests are more important than your identity? Of course not. Okay, that's not the far. This is why Cenk Uygur is giving me the fucking shits at the moment, because of his far left bullshit. It's like, no, this is America brain. Okay, no, do you understand that this woke shit is centre right at best? It is stripping the left of any of the actual substance of anything. It is being used by either neolibs and fascists to distract everybody. And it's like, because they know that literacy is low in the United States. And it's just class interest. Oh no, but they mean it. They definitely mean it. It's like, no, they don't. They pay lip service to get what they want. And it's like, okay, off you fuck then. Go be a fucking coward and not say anything. And he's sitting there, and that was actually really annoying, that TYT, because I watched TYT's coverage of this thing. And he sits there going, well, I agree with Zuck on this thing. It's like, Zuck is in a hostage video. He's not saying anything that he means. He's saying what he was told to say so that they would not, there is nothing substantive in what he is saying. Okay, other than, like, if you know what he's talking about, it is, I don't want to be regulated. I want to keep doing what I'm doing. I have my bunker. You know, and again, there is a charitable view of this, which is that, you know, put yourself in his shoes. Everything you've worked for, everything you've built, this empire that you've built. And also, again, everyone's telling you you're a genius. You have brain rot. You have libertarian brain rot where you think that you are there because you are a genius and you think that you have no blind spots. This is a tech thing. It's an engineer thing particularly, where they just think they know everything and that they can't be, like, they're uncoachable. And then anytime someone does anything remotely honest or mean, they go, you're so negative. Don't be negative, be more positive, like we saw Elon Musk do this last week. Okay, they don't get it. They think that they're in charge. This is divine right of kings shit. Okay, they've just decided that they are in charge because they are the smartest of all of us, and they are not. They are fallible. They have blind spots. Now, Zuckerberg, I'll give a little more to, because I think within his limitations, he does still listen to those around him. And I do think that he intends, I think he always thinks that he can fix, I think he thinks it's better that he is there fixing it and helping than not. And I think he's correct when you look at the stakeholders and board and all of those sorts of things. I do try to give the benefit of the doubt. Like, Musk has got brainworms. He needs to be stopped. He needs to be arrested. I don't give a fuck. I think he needs to be, like, he's a national security risk for everybody. And I think that they need to fucking seize his assets. That's what I think. But he controls information. So good luck. But anyway, Zuck's a little more complex than that. Because, you know, they do generally try to do the right thing. But the thing about, like, with tech, it's like such an echo chamber. They just believe their own bullshit. They're huffing their own farts 24/7, right? But again, that's, you don't, but yeah, anyway, it's very frustrating to watch the media sort of talk about this stuff. Anyway, I'm sort of fading. I've been streaming for an hour and a half. I faded about 1:15. It's usually, you know, that's the sweet spot. But they've been disconnected from end users, but there's a reason for that. It's not that I've observed this over the years. Like, they just, suddenly they've got this paycheck and they think it makes them more capable or smart. And this whole H-1B debate is hilarious, and, like, you know, by extension, your E3 visa and those sorts of things for Australians. You know, I've seen this brain rot where they think that because they work at PayPal or they work at Spotify, the janitor at Spotify thinks that they're the founder of Spotify. I know someone who was like a low-level manager at PayPal and absolutely fucking insufferable with displaining because it was PayPal. It's like, you're still just a copywriter. Like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, I still outrank you in terms of what I'm qualified to say, but I didn't work at PayPal. I worked for myself as a consultant. I was less than. There is this whole thing with tech where they believe that they're better than you because they just they work there. Because everyone's been sold this thing about, you know, because they have these abusive, completely unacceptable recruitment like processes that you know, weed people out who don't tolerate their bullshit to begin with, but then they wrap it in the best of the best. No, it's not the best of the best. It's the people who will put up with that shit. Okay, like I've been approached several times and I've said, no, I'm not doing 6 interviews. Go fuck yourselves. Okay, I'm not doing that. It's but it's the same thing with the visas and stuff. Like they've got this thing where they think that because they're on a visa, it's like, yo, you're on a visa because you're cheaper than US labor. It's not because you're special. You're not that smart. Okay, you're not that great. Nobody is. Okay, and like, if anything, I truly believe that people who are able to pay their rent, make their bills, you know, have a living free of that stuff, is far better and far smarter than anyone who just shows up and gets overpaid to do like siloed tiny work. Like that, it's just you're on a factory floor. If you're an engineer, and working at these things, you're on a factory floor. And you are overpaid, and you have been told you're a genius, and you are not. Okay? I have survived in this landscape on my own as a consultant. I have turned these things down. You're not smarter than us. And it's just, anyway, that's a whole thing that pisses me off too, which is that the people who work at FANG, because they have these recruitment processes that are so... Like, if how much you're willing to debase yourself, that you have no self-respect, just purely being, you know, it's like, no, I'm not putting up with that shit. I'm not going through that. Have some fucking self-respect. I saw a thing on LinkedIn where they've got these HR things and they're asking about people's views on COVID. No, fuck off. It's none of your fucking, it's an illegal question, and also fuck off. Who the fuck do you think you are? 21-year-olds with a CRM asking people's views about stuff as part of screening? No! Go fuck yourself. I am not answering that. And again, I don't apply for jobs. I'm not going to. This is why I sit outside the system on purpose. And I'd rather earn 5 cents than put up with that shit. Putting fucking questions like that into a recruitment tool that will then discriminate against you for the rest of your life based on the answer, fuck off. Those tools need to be outlawed. They need to be banned, and they need to be have the data. They need to have court orders that data needs to be destroyed. That is where it needs to be. I should be able to request that data be destroyed. It is so unethical. Like, the HR tech is just unbelievable. Like, that was the thing that got me first speaking up on YouTube about this. My first video is about brand yourself, about that scrapes all of your tweets and gives you a social score and shit. And then they sell an enterprise product that does the same thing for employers. So that if you even talk about anything remotely inappropriate, it screens you. Fuck off. Your reputation score, go fuck yourselves, all of you. And if you support these tools, no, it's wrong and it should be illegal, and I hope you go to jail for it. You can't treat people this way. And it's just like, anyway, but we're about to see the end stage of all of the things that I've warned about when it comes to data abuses. That same PayPal person, I remember having lunch with them and always condescending, mind you, always, I know better than you. And I was like, no, I know better than you. Fuck off. Always something about tech where they just think they know everything. It's so annoying. And then not even in tech, copywriter. Not even someone who can build tech, but they're in tech, so they obviously smarter than everyone, right? That's the whole culture of tech. And I said, no, you shouldn't be collecting all this data on people. I said, you can't do this. It's wrong. Oh, no. And then they just went, no, I'm giving people what they want, and acted like I didn't know what I was talking about because I'm just, they're there, idiot. You don't work. You wouldn't understand. You wouldn't understand, dear. It's not like you understand history or anything. Fucking hell, these people. This is tech's gap. This is the gap. Which is tech people are the most insufferable cunts in the world, where they people who somehow have failed upwards into a corporate position can barely string a sentence together, and then they say, oh no, I'm a writer, I'm a better writer than you, because they hold the position. And they use their job title as a cudgel never show that they've actually got any skills, but they've just failed upwards into these like job titles. And I can see no evidence that any of them are better writers than me, or more knowledgeable than in any way. And it's, I mean, you've got to be a journalist if you're going to fucking pretend that you know stuff. Anyway, I've ranted long enough. I don't know what I said. I'm going to go. Can't remember what I was. Oh, yeah, it was meta. I had all these notes, but I like to just go on a rant. But honestly, there are reasons for this, but I think that it's time to start listening to users again. I do feel that there is some room for disruption here, because IBM and Microsoft and those things were disrupted at one point too. And I think that they are now, I think people have had enough. I think, again, we're very much at the same place as we were, robber baron. I mean, God, it's all happening so fast. I mean, 5 years ago, it would have been sort of robber barons, but now we're sort of looking at Weimar Germany situation. We're looking at actual fascism. I mean, whether he's joking or not, you know, President of the United States, you might be joking about Greenland. You might be, you know, messing around. You might be memeing, but you're acting like a groyper, where groypers hide behind layers and layers of jokes and irony. And that's an actual Nazi tactic to launder the real agenda behind jokes. So, you know, like, I'm not saying that I can't take a joke. I'm not saying that I can't appreciate the fact that he's distracting everyone and, you know, saying stupid shit about Canada and Greenland and fucking all that sort of stuff. But you also have to be aware of that normalcy bias as well, where you go, oh, he's just joking. Surely he's joking. They're just joking. Surely they're just joking. Oh my God, they're just joking, until they're not joking. You know, like, it's like the fact that he's saying these things. Like 10 years ago, this type of rhetoric would have been an international incident. The fact that we are so numb and normalized to the kinds of imperialist rhetoric that's coming out of Donald Trump's mouth, and this absolutely pathetic, understandable. I can understand why, because it's a matter of survival for Meta and for Zuck as well. I understand it. You might want to look at history when it comes to capitulating to a fascist regime. And, you know, like I said that, like, Meta have, like, disrupted IBM in more ways than one. Look at IBM. They've got, like, some of their hardware is in the Holocaust Museum, right? IBM played quite a big role in the Holocaust, right? Doesn't mean I don't understand it, but, like, it's pathetic that you've got no fucking principles. But they, you know, like, how much money is enough money? How much power is enough power? That said, I also don't think that it is necessarily about power, but I think that Zuck's position, I don't know, there's something about his body language where he is aware of the gravity and the responsibility that he has. And I want to be charitable, and I don't feel, if I was in his position, which I wouldn't be because I'm not a fucking, you know, I wouldn't be. But if I was, and I was me in this position, I can't see how I would do things. I mean, I'd probably say, you know, like that. There's not really, let's assume worst case scenario that this is a potentially Hitlerian situation, right? It's not always going to be the case, but it is definitely fascistic. Okay, it's an unholy alliance between people who want to bring about the rapture people who control the flow of information, people who can switch off critics, and people who give no fucks about humanity, women's rights, or anything like that. Okay, they've gone to war with the left. A lot of the markers of early Nazi Germany are there. Okay, the red flags, the indications are there. Whether they succeed or not, because fascists implode on themselves, that remains to be seen. But it doesn't mean that you shouldn't be on alert. Okay, it may not happen. It probably won't, but it could. Okay. And the fact that it could is enough. And so let's just assume that this is the early stage of that. Without just completely dissolving Meta, I mean, I imagine that he feels like he wants to protect what he's built, wants to protect his employees. If it was me, I would be working more with the EU and other countries, because I don't think that America is going to win this battle, believe it or not. I don't think that, I don't know behind the scenes what's going on. I have been in two minds about like whether I do go and work at Meta in a council role but I just, because they're always what's been really interesting is that they've been advertising the same public policy manager role at Meta for 18 months in Australia. So there's been the same, and they have been advertising a general counsel contract position, and they're getting harder and harder to fill, I think, because I think that they're looking for people who are going to be doing anyone who's got those specialist skills and interests falls on the opposite side to Meta's strategy, and you would have to be lobbying government against the interests of the public. And I think that those only the most sociopathic fail son would sort of be able to rationalize it. Like it would be a difficult position. Like I could that might be an interest. That's a sign that maybe the things have shifted, or that they're screening. They're really, really screening you for whatever. Anyway, I've thought about it. I have considered it. They won't hire me. Too ethical. It's like when people suggest I work for tech companies, and it's like they won't hire me because I won't do the shit that they need you to do. I won't even put up with the recruitment process, let alone anything else. All right, there's no point. I can't keep my mouth shut when things are like against users or anti-human, right? I won't do that. I'm pro-human, and as much as they annoy me with their stupid fucking, I don't want a yellow, because they're distracted on the color, they're so distracted with the yellow versus white argument that they are missing the fact that all of the other stuff that's going on while they're distracted arguing about color schemes. It's like, I'm more focused on making sure that this doesn't go off the rails. Anyway, hopefully you have gotten something out of this. I don't know if I did. I did. I'm just venting, but like, hopefully you can. I'm hoping that enough people over time look at what they're doing and decide what side they're on, because I think it's going to get a lot worse before it gets better. And I think I would like people to, especially if you're on the inside of tech, like you need to be pushing harder. You need to be willing to sacrifice your own shit for this, because it's going to blow back on you a lot. It's going to, that said, IBM didn't see any consequences. Go read, even just Wikipedia, read some articles on IBM and the Holocaust, but pay attention to what they did afterwards. So they started doing woke shit. Like they started going, we hire lots of women. We're hiring more black. It's like such a fucking transparent move. It's like, yeah, but you were fucking participating in the Holocaust. No, we hire more women. We hire more women. And we are about inclusion and stuff. It's like, look over there. Look over there. Look over here. Look over here. No, there. Look over here. No, look over here. That's what woke shit is, okay? That's what that stupid dumb shit is. It's a distraction. Inclusion. Fuck off. Include your users if you are inclusive. Now, again, I do feel that on balance, despite all of the shareholder shit, Mark Zuckerberg's heart is in the right place. I really do. Musk, nah. He's but Zuck, I think he grapples with his vision a lot, and I think he's been bought and sold and compromised, and it shows. Okay. But I don't think anyone would want to be in his position, especially in an administration that's hostile to him, and his it's tricky. It's tricky stuff. But anyway, I'm going to go. I love you. I'll be back on Tuesday. I'm going to start doing a bit more pre-record too, because I don't really engage with chat anyway. So there's no harm in pre-recording and editing stuff. Yeah, I want to also do a bit more patron-only content as well. I'm still figuring out that schedule. I'm actually overloading my units for law school this trimester as well. So I need to not bite off more than I can chew, because there's a unit that I really want to do that's not running. And if I didn't overload it, I'd have to push back graduation longer again. And I'm too fucking old. So I'm just going to overload it for this 3 months. So but if you're in just I don't know. I'm thinking of offering a consulting package where I don't even know if I need money for it or whatever. Oh, thank you, Nicole. Hello. At the risk of sounding like... I was laughing, actually, because if you go look on the IBM Wikipedia page that I referred to, and it literally said they said the words, I fucking howled laughing. It was IBM in response to rapid changes in the technological landscape. And I was like, oh my God, because obviously AI trains on Wikipedia as well, but it was just, I groaned out loud. It was very funny, but no, you're allowed to compliment me and be a corporate person. And I know enough corporate people, and I know enough CEOs, CFOs, CIOs, all those people, that they say the words, they don't mean it. You have a beer with any CEO or anyone, not so much CEOs because they're wankers and they don't like me anymore. But, people down from that, most people know that it's all bullshit. They just say the words, bleh. It's the jargon it's just the milieu of corporate life. But everyone outside of their bubble and corporate environment, you're cool. You can be on. The problem is that you're just not. The problem with the internet is the convergence of that, where we're not allowed to actually be real anymore. Like even the authentic people, like on. But it is hilarious that if you've hitched your wagon to being an online influencer, and your whole shtick is saying the most superficial, shallow, vacuous nonsense just to sell products and coupon codes and shit. Congratulations, you're out of work. You're going to be replaced with AI because, like I said, the cents in the dollar that you get is still too much overhead for Meta. Okay? They don't give a fuck about you. So be yourself. It's almost like being authentic and real is the answer here. I cannot be replaced with an AI. Okay? I can be silenced by one. I can be discredited with one. People can make concerted efforts to mass report me with one or all these things, but I can't be replaced. Like my writing style, the way that I carry myself, nobody can be me. And so if there's any advice for content creators, it's that. If you can be replaced by AI as a writer, anything, you're not an artist. You're content. And so work on that. Figure that out. Figure out who you are and let that be your thing. Okay. There's room for everybody. We're all wonderful. We're all unique. And just cut the bullshit. Be more honest and just, we're good. So thank you, Nicole. I'm sorry if there have been chat messages. It's these it comes through sometimes, it doesn't on others. It doesn't come through like, and then it will work and then it won't work. I don't know what this restream thing, like, it just doesn't seem to want to work. But yeah, thank you. I will be back on Tuesday next week. I'm trying to stick to my schedule, and but anyway, time to go. I've got stuff to do. Take care. Bye. Hang on, I need a drink first.